Niska moves that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that Senate File number 856 be recalled from the Committee on State Government, Finance, and Policy, be given its second and third readings, and be placed upon its final passage.
I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. The House Republican Caucus has strongly supported an empowered, independent Office of Inspector General, an Office of Inspector General with enforcement powers, and we need to get this bill done. The governor has just recently said he'll sign this bill if we send it to him. The Senate passed this last year with bipartisan support, and the fastest way to get this done is to pass it today. Last May, we made this motion, and the House DFL said no. So if Leader Long will yield to a question.
He will yield to a question. Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Leader Long, has your caucus's position changed so we can pass this bill today, Senate File 856?
Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, the bill was heard when the Democrats had the gavel today, and there was a DE amendment presented, which the bill author could speak to if you want to ask him to yield. And that amendment was not accepted. So right now we are working through the committee process to try to develop a bill in the normal course of proceedings that will be the best bill we can put forward to the governor's desk.
Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. And people of Minnesota, I hope you were listening, because the answer to that was the House DFL says no. We've passed the Senate, we can pass the Senate bill today. We can pass the Senate bill today. But the House DFL says no. The amendment that was presented, make no mistake about it, is gutting the bill. It removed all enforcement power from the Office of Inspector General. It creates other burdens on the Office of Inspector General, and the House DFL is trying to slow roll the bill, sending it to committee after committee, even though House File 1, the clone of this bill, has already gone through multiple committees. Chairman Nash, would you yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Chair Nash, I think you just heard a claim about what happened in the State Government and Finance Committee, and I would just like if you would explain to the House what you were attempting to do when Chair Cleavorn cut you off and adjourned the meeting today.
Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Leader Niska, I went to committee this morning fully expecting to have a conversation around not just the underlying bill, but also the proposed DE amendment. The DE was introduced and immediately went to a roll call. Now, I had done the courtesy, Leader Niska, of telling Chair Cleavorn our intent to not allow it to be put on because we believe, as I think most Minnesotans do, that a widely bipartisan bill that came over from the Senate that had authors as on far antipodal ends as they did, voting in favor of the bill, that it was a good harbinger for what was going to happen here in the House. So I tried to get recognized to speak to the DE amendment, which vastly changed the construct of the bill, which removed huge portions that had garnered Republican support over in the Senate, and I was not even given the opportunity to be recognized in committee. It's in the video. So what happened then was it went to a roll call vote, having never given any of the Republican members of State Government Finance the opportunity to ask questions. Now, everybody who's here knows that I'm a process person. In committee, when an amendment is offered, and I'm going to pick on Representative Mueller because she's in my line of sight. Representative Mueller has the A4 to your amendment. She would then move the amendment, describe the amendment, and then we would go to questions on the amendment from the members of the committee. That didn't happen today. I was shut down, and we went straight to a vote because Chair Cleavorn apparently wasn't interested in questions today. So it died on a tie, The bill still remains in committee, and we have the ability to today take up the Senate file, which was what my initial recommendation was going to be, to take Senate file 856, send it out of committee, send it to Ways and Means, and we can move it faster. But today, you can do it even quicker than that. The governor has said he will sign this into law if presented. If you believe that your Senate colleague, Senator Gustafson, had done a great job on this, as did most of her colleagues, then put up a vote today, because we can send this to Governor Walz's desk and get it done today. Thank you.
Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We can do this today. We can get it over to the governor's desk today, signed into law by early next week. Get this thing up and running. Get this new office with enforcement powers, with true independence from the governor's office. We don't have to gut it, as Representative Norris tried to do in committee. We don't have to slow roll it. We don't have to send it to committee after committee after committee. If we're serious about it, let's get it done today. There's 67 votes over here to do it. There's 67 votes over here to do it. Let's get it done. Madam Speaker, I request a roll call.
Roll call being requested. There will be a roll call. Further discussion, I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Norris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the attention to this piece of legislation. I think it's a really important piece of legislation for our state, but that doesn't mean that we should skip necessary steps or rush something through, especially something that is so critical and so wide-sweeping. There's a couple of reasons why I am going to recommend that we vote no on the motion to declare an urgency on my own bill today. The first reason is that the language from the Senate has never been vetted by the House of Representatives. There has never been a hearing on this language. We tried to have a hearing on it today, and unfortunately, we were blocked in that attempt because the DE was not adopted. I was not extended the courtesy that this body extends to all authors to allow them to get their bill in the shape that they prefer, especially on the first committee stop, and especially when the Senate language has been replaced or has replaced my language. This bill builds on a good bipartisan foundation, but it should be vetted in the House of Representatives. Members, we don't let the other body do our homework for us. I don't care how many votes it got in the other body. If this is the precedent that we want to set, members, we might as well all return our election certificates, go home, and let the other body run this place. I'm not going to stand for that. The second reason why I'm recommending a no vote today is because this bill includes an extensive data practices section. Under our rules, Rule 4.16, if there are data practices provisions in a bill, there is a mandatory referral to judiciary. And there's a reason for that. Madam Speaker, I'm wondering if Chair Liebling would yield to a question.
Representative Liebling will yield to a question. Representative Norris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Liebling, I'm wondering, have you, as the Judiciary Committee co-chair, had an opportunity to review the data practices language in Senate File 856?
Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Norris. I have not, and I agree with you. It is very important that any bill that has data practices in it come to the Judiciary and Civil Law Committee to be reviewed. This is really important stuff. And over my years in this body, I have seen chairs of this committee really guard that jurisdiction. If there's anything about Chapter 13 in the bill, it needs to come to the Judiciary Committee, and I am very opposed to having it skip that. And as you said, I don't care if the governor said he'll sign it. I don't care which senators voted for it. It needs to go through the proper process here in the House.
Representative Norris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Liebling, for clarifying that for the body. The third reason that I'm recommending a no vote today is that we've got some ideas on how to make the bill better. As I said, the bill that came over from the Senate is a good foundation for us to work from. We've had great four-caucus talks, but it doesn't mean that the bill is perfect and that there's not an opportunity to continue to improve it. For instance, we would like to add in more of a focus on preventing fraud from occurring in the first place, rather than just investigating it after the fact, because we know that it's much more cost-effective to prevent fraud rather than try to recover the dollars after they've gone out the door. We have ways to reduce duplication and unnecessary use of cost and use of taxpayer dollars that's currently in the bill. And importantly, we fully fund the office so that this important office can get down to the really critical work it needs to do on behalf of Minnesotans on day one and not be hamstrung by a lack of resources. So members, I'm going to recommend a no vote on this motion to declare an urgency so that we can continue to improve this bill and pass it in regular order so it does the important work that it should for Minnesotans.
I recognize the member from Washington, Representative Anderson, PE.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hardly know where to start. I'm so angry and disgusted with what happened this morning. We spent the entire year last year working all four caucuses, negotiating between House File 1 and between Senator Gustafson's Bill 856, and trying to come and do good, trying to come together to create an independent, truly independent Office of Inspector General that we can all support. Here in the House, as we made changes on House File 1, as we agreed to things with the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, I went through 5 or 6 committees. And every time we had changes, things we had agreed on, things that I was giving up from the Republican House File 1 bill, we made those changes and amended our bill until we got stuck in State Gov, and that's where it got held. And then I filed a clone because I had promised Human Services that I would go back there and talk about where the bill was at. And I did that, and I went back, and it got stuck. The bill that passed the Senate is the bill that all of us agreed on. It is the bill that we worked on hard, bipartisan, bicameral. It passed there almost unanimously, 60-7, to do something for the state of Minnesota, for the citizens, so that we can stop the fraud and start working to get back the public trust. Because, folks, there is no public trust anymore in state government. And when things like this happen, when one of the parties who was negotiating with us, who didn't allow us to pass it last year, comes and the day before and guts the OIG bill, guts it, without talking to anyone else, barely talking to Senator Gustafson is my understanding, certainly not talking to the Republicans or anyone else who was working on this bill. And they come and they attempt to gut it and to start over. That is wrong. That is the wrong thing to do for Minnesotans. That is the wrong thing to do to try to stop the fraud. And it's shameful. And here we are in the 3rd day of session, only the 3rd day. And is this what we're going to be for the next 12 weeks? We're going to start a fight like this? This is shameful. We need to pass this bill. We worked hard. It is a compromise. I don't even, I'm not even the author anymore because House File 1 is stuck because the Democrats won't let it out of state gov. So you're the author on the House side. But you don't want this bill to pass. This is wrong. It is wrong, and it is wrong to slow walk this, to gut the bill, to take the teeth out of it, to try to start negotiations over. It is wrong. And if we go down this path, nothing is going to happen for fraud coming out of this legislature this year. And that is not what the people of Minnesota want. So I ask our colleagues, pass this bill now. Vote yes on the urgency. We need to get this done for Minnesotans. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And, history is sometimes an inconvenient thing when you're on the wrong side of it. If you'll remember back, for those of you who were here during the last session where we pulled up this very same bill on an urgency, and you look at the votes who voted yes, you know who you find? The author of House File 856, Representative Norris. And it reminded me, because he's advocating a no vote today, it reminded me, because I'm a student of history, to this statement. I voted in favor of the bill before I voted against the bill. That's former Senator Kerry back in 2004. I voted for the bill before I voted against the bill. And you said you wanted a full vetting of this bill, but you offered a DE today that effectively evaporated this bill. I'm confused. I just thought that maybe you were going to bring this bill, we'd talk about this bill, and you would have gotten a warm reception from Republicans today had, we've been allowed to talk. You would have gotten a warm reception today in committee, and we would have given you 7 votes to move this bill out of committee. Well, that didn't happen, once again, because I think maybe we're relying on habits that were created during the trifecta where you don't really want to listen to Republicans. I voted for the bill before I voted against the bill. I want to have a full vetting of the bill, but I want to offer a DE that removes absolutely any remnant of the bill from the bill. Once again, vastly confused by the process, not only the process that I saw today, which was a complete travesty, but the message that you're giving here for having voted for the bill previously, and now you're saying, this one's better, and that old one that I voted in favor of that I thought was great is apparently no longer great. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Cleavorn.
Thank you. It's very interesting to sit here and listen to someone say that we don't listen to Republicans when the member on the other side had just said that we had participated in 4-party negotiations for months and months and nearly a year. You will remember that on the last day of session, I clearly stood up on this floor and said, we don't pass a bill of this significance. We didn't have an accurate fiscal note. There were all kinds of problems with the reasons of passing it at 1/4 to midnight. I asked at that time that we please allow the House to do their own homework. This DE is a result of House homework with the Senate author, with the governor's team, with members of this body. Chair Nash, I apologize, but you've never shown any interest in negotiating this bill. Sorry, I like you, but I'm not going to allow you to take credit for that. This bill was not yours in any part. I will tip my hand to Representative Anderson, who has worked very hard on the bill, and I will give her credit for coming to committee and doing what she believed to be the best work for this bill. After seeing the final version that was rushed off the Senate floor with on-the-fly amendments, It is time for us to run this through the proper process, to allow the public to come in and talk about this bill, to have the data privacy provisions reviewed in this bill. A DE is different from other amendments. A DE is putting the bill, the entirety of the bill, in the author's language. When you deny the author's DE on a Senate file, you are saying, House member, get out of the way, only the Senate file has a right. That is bogus in this chamber, and anybody who participates in that has made an abdication of our responsibility. That's how I see it. When I spoke to the author in the other body, I was very clear to say, what is it you like? What is important to you in this bill? And I received that feedback. I also asked that author if that author was all right with the process. Are you okay with us taking this through the House process? Because when the House and the Senate disagree, we get to better legislation. And that's the work of a good conference committee, where people who are committed to the work come together in public and pass that bill. I just want to honor everyone in this room who knows we are focused on two things, and I think it belongs to most of us in this room. We want to make sure that every dollar we allocate gets to the important service it was allocated for, to the people. I mean, we heard conversation today in higher education about let's not forget to center ourselves on the people of Minnesota. And when we try to do this shenanigans stuff, that's not right, because it's not focused on the people, right? So bringing the Senate file like this is not the right thing. Allow the House process, the House author, who has always been the author on this bill. This bill has never been House File 1. So I ask the members of this body to vote no on the suspension and declaring the urgency to bring this bill forward. Let us do our work. I ask for our members in State Gov to please allow the DE to come on the next time I bring this bill forward, so that we can have the full discussion that you want in the committee where the work should happen like this. Thank you so much.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to respond to several things here. First of all, I want to thank Representative Anderson, Vice Chair of the Fraud Committee, who has done incredible work on getting this bill through tough negotiations. All last session, they worked in a bipartisan, bicameral working group every Friday and worked through this process. It was some of the best legislative working together I've seen in my time here. It should be a model for everyone. But secondly, what's most telling in this whole discussion is that what Chair Cleavorn just said. We had bipartisan, bicameral agreement on the independent Office of Inspector General bill last session, passed the Democrat-led Senate 60-7. And then, as Chair Cleavorn just said, they decided to bring the governor's office in. And that is when they decided to kill the independence, the law enforcement properties, because now we're back to where we've always been. The governor and the executive branch do not want independent oversight of how they are running this. And we saw that when the governor rolled out his supposed fraud prevention plan this year, when he appointed his own inspector general, or similar equivalent position, a retired judge. who is probably a wonderful person, but reports to the governor. What we are missing, and the reason we have the biggest fraud scandal in the country, is because we don't have any independent oversight of this governor and his executive agencies, and it is shameful. Chair Cleavorn said she wants to hear from the public. Well, I'll tell you what, I hear from the public all the time. The public has had it up to here with us. They are fed up with billions of our tax dollars being stolen and being used for things like a resort in Kenya, an apartment building in Nairobi, a culinary school in Ohio, luxury cars and homes and jewelry here in the US. They are fed up. They want their tax dollars to go to vulnerable citizens or to be returned to them. They want independent, separate from the governor's office, oversight of the executive branch, because clearly they haven't been doing their jobs. We see it over and over and over. I don't know how many hearings we have to have with this same exact fact pattern. Members, we have a responsibility as the legislature, as a separate branch of government, to ensure that there is independent oversight of the executive branch, because they are not doing it on their own. The Office of Legislative Auditor, God bless them, they do incredible work, but they're still an agency of the legislature. Because of separation of powers, we need to have independent law enforcement oversight in the executive branch. That's what this fight is about, and we need to give that so that the public can have assurance that their tax money is spent well. So members, I urge you to join us in supporting this urgency. We cannot wait till May to start setting this up. It is far overdue.
I recognize a member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the people watching, if you want the real answers of what happened in committee, watch the video. Not a single question was allowed. No debate on the DE, no debate on the bill, no question was allowed, rushed to a vote. The implication was made, oh, that's the practice that we all adhere to. Well, I've been here across a couple decades, not the full 2 decades, but quite a while, and I have several occasions had debate on a DE from the author, had a discussion and an understanding. And is it regular? No. But when things are important and a good discussion and an open discussion that is visible to the public is needed, it has happened. And frankly, this is not a trivial bill. This is an important bill, and it became more important when it came out that there was falsification of documentation in agencies. So, why do you need independent review? You need someone outside of the authority of an agency that has been proven to falsify documentation. We need this looked at independently, and that would be from someone with authority like an independent inspector general. This 90% of the Senate supported this bill. Oh, we got to go through the process. The process actually includes discussing and debating the bill, which was refused to us in committee meeting. So the public, watch the video, you'll understand who's trying to hold a debate, a discussion, and move forward with this important activity. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill. I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Cleavorn.
Thank you. And I find this I find this floor discussion to be very interesting because it is quite apparent to me, the co-author on the bill, that many people in this room have not read the DE. Because the DE, in fact, states the independence of the OIG. Thank you.
Further discussion to the motion. I recognize the maker of the motion, Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I think it's interesting. We heard from the chair, the DFL co-chair of state government, who was discussed about this plan to have a DE amendment that guts and slow rolls the bill. It was discussed with the Senate author. It didn't say the Senate author actually supports the language, just that the Senate author knows that this is what's happening to it, and that it was discussed with the governor's team, not discussed with Republicans. Unlike the Senate bill, which was the result of bipartisan, bicameral work over a long period of time, it was discussed with the governor's team. So there you go. I think we know where the plan came up with to pretend to be in favor of an Office of Inspector General bill while gutting both the law enforcement powers and the real independence from the governor's office and trying to send it to committee after committee after committee, even though the bill has already gone through all the committee stops in a different form as House File 1. We don't have to do that. The people of Minnesota see through that. They're sick of the fraud. They're sick of the fraud stealing money from our state programs, and they're sick of the fraud happening here. We don't have to do that. Let's pass the bill. Republicans say yes. What does the DFL say? Vote yes.
There's been a roll call requested. The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the name of the member participating remotely.
West.
West votes aye.
West votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There are 66 yeas and 67 nays. The motion does not prevail.